morning. It's cold, it's dark. Talking about eating healthy, and you're still here. It's wonderful. So let me introduce myself really quick. I'm Renee Barrille. I'm a professor at the University of Massachusetts in Lowell. I talk about nutrition for a living. I'm also a registered dietitian. I have been for 20 years. I used to work at Mass General. I've been at Winchester Hospital. Mostly I specialized in weight management, so you'll see a little bit of that tonight. And I'm really excited. The reason why I was asked to do this is Amanda from the Public Health Department here in Chelmsford knew about some of my students who were doing some work at the Chelmsford Senior Center. So it's great that we're getting out in the community and trying to promote healthy habits. So I'm very happy to be here. So we're talking about 2018. Are we all used to putting 2018? No. You know it's February tomorrow, right? So if we are average Americans and we made a New Year's resolution, would most of us still be following through with that resolution here at the end of January? You are? Or you know the answer? Most of us last about 2 weeks into January, and then we tend to sort of abandon our good intentions. So a big message for tonight is how to come up with some healthy goals that are a little bit more sustainable. So one of the first ways you can kind of start to think about that is thinking about, well, what's actually a healthy goal? That's what we're going to focus on, mostly nutrition and exercise. And what's fad? And fad, I'm saying in a very negative way, kind of something you heard that may not be true, if it's really healthy or not. So we'll talk a little bit about that. It's fun. It's fun to make fun of some of the silly things that we've tried to be healthy in the past that we know don't work very well. And hopefully that'll give you some ideas of maybe some more sustainable or maintainable lifestyle changes that you could make to make yourself healthier in 2018. And then we're going to talk a little bit about making SMART goals. So SMART goals are healthy goals, but they're also going to be more realistic, more maintainable. I'll give you some tips on how to think about goal making that tends to work better than just, I'm going to be healthier this year, which doesn't tend to work at all. All right, so you look just like my students. You're all about 20, right? Exactly. Me too. I get carded all the time. So some of these trends that I picked up the pictures from are things that I hear my students talking about all of the time. So I make my students go on a diet for one of the classes I teach, even if they don't need to lose weight. I just want them to know what it feels like. And most of them this year picked intermittent fasting. If you've ever heard of that, that's very hot right now in the young crowd at least. They picked it up on the internet, YouTube a lot. A couple of them did a juicing diet. They were the really miserable ones, just having juice and nothing else. You've heard of keto. So keto is like a high protein, low carb. You put yourself into ketosis. It's almost identical to Atkins with a different name. A lot of them were way into that. Some of these other things have been more my peers. You know, I hang out with, the middle-aged crowd, a lot of people with kids. They're into making vegetables look like things other than vegetables. That's very trendy right now. That's actually seaweed, which is sort of trendy. Kale is much cooler than seaweed. Everybody's talking about kale. All my friends who are in research are talking about probiotics and your gut health. Anything fermented is supposed to be pretty cool. And this is just me personally. I've been seeing Oprah a lot. She's probably figured out that January is a good time to promote Weight Watchers and her new line of products. So nutrition's a lot like fashion. We circle through and we find the latest and greatest. So what's happening in Chelmsford? What are you guys hearing about?
gyms are very crowded these days.
Okay, so people are into exercise, maybe a lot of fitness goals. That's very common. They usually do like discounts if you join in January. So the New Year's resolution is a real thing. People often care about it. Have you guys seen anything in the grocery stores? Different food products that you hadn't noticed before? No? People, gluten-free we'll talk about. That's been popular for a while. Low carb, absolutely. Probiotics, yeah, probiotics are huge. There's a lot of interest in probiotics are good for your immune system, and everybody's really worried about the flu and catching colds right now. So we see all of those things. So if you're kind of separating the good from the trendy, I tended to put some of the more evidence-based, healthier ones on this side, and the more fad ones that my students are really into on the other side. So if you want to spot a fad, let me go up one. If you want to spot a fad, they're usually promising you something's going to happen rapidly or quickly. So weight loss is a common goal for people around New Year's, and everybody wants that to happen as fast as possible, or they want to have more energy or speed up their metabolism or cure a disease with nutrition and exercise. And this is kind of a hallmark of our society, right? We want it yesterday. And nutrition is very powerful, but it doesn't work very fast. So if it's promising you something quick, it's probably a fad. And that's almost always true for weight loss. It's telling you to do something and you kind of think, would I be able to do that for the long term? Is that sustainable? Am I going to cut out carbohydrates for the rest of my life? And if the answer is no, I don't think I can keep doing this, then it's probably a bit more fad. And when you have fad diets or foods or whatever the fad might be, usually you go back to old habits, right? So that's definitely something we want to avoid. Here's some of the, I put icons of some of the ones that we've seen a lot of. Atkins keeps coming back. I just saw a commercial for Atkins the other day. It's a very restrictive diet, right? Almost no carbohydrates, no fruits in the real active phase, not even some of the healthier carbohydrates. So the reason why it keeps coming back is because it works. You'll definitely lose weight on Atkins. Just about everybody I know who's done it has lost weight. And just about every single person who's lost weight on Atkins has regained the weight. It's good for about 6 months for most people, right? So those are the kind of things that we want to kind of stay away from. I like this middle one because to me, I think, oh wow, I could never do that. But so many people made this drink of lemon, cayenne pepper, and water. And they drank it multiple times every day. I don't know who promoted it or how it got so famous, but so many people tried it. Detoxify, boost your metabolism. So it's supposed to make you feel really great. I'm making fun of it. Did anybody here try it? No? You did?
I have.
It's bad. The cayenne pepper is what gets me. Like, why? Why? Not very proven in science. Gluten-free is, it's kind of a fad. It's kind of not a fad. There's definitely people who can't have gluten, right? That's a real allergy, a real intolerance. Celiac disease is a real disease. But a lot of people who don't need to avoid gluten feel like it's something bad, and if they avoid it, it's good for them, and it's really only necessary if you have a problem with gluten. So simple things. If it sounds too good to be true, unfortunately, in the nutrition world, it probably is. Let me go back a slide, because I'm going to have you either out loud or internally start thinking about some of the healthy habits you'd want to work into your own life. In case you were a shy group, I put my 2 things that I'm working on in the new year. So I'm trying to do more yoga. I've always believed in yoga. I think it's a great thing to do, but I never really made the time for it because I was always, I'd exercise. I'll walk, I'll jog, but kind of the stretching, relaxation type of thing, it was never a priority for me, but now it is. So that's one of the things I've been working on. I got an Instapot for Christmas. Does anybody else have an Instapot? It's great, isn't it? No? Oh, you don't have one. You're shaking your head.
What is it?
Oh, what is it? So I threw away my crock pot because this acts as a crock pot, like a slow cooker, but it's also a pressure cooker that's not scary and doesn't seem like it's going to blow up your kitchen. So you can cook just about anything, including meat that's still frozen, in less than 20 minutes. So when you work full time and you've got 2 little kids and you got to do everything in less than 20 minutes. So it really has helped us eat healthier. We've also made a lot of soups and stews, a lot of lentils in it. Lentils are real hard to cook. You got to soak them and it takes a long time. You can put a hard lentil in and still make a lentil soup in 20 minutes. So it's a cool gadget, and it's taking out that time factor. It really can help you eat healthier.
Is it electric or stovetop?
It's electric. Yeah, you just plug it in. Yep. So this person is probably making some type of vegetable soup. You can do combo dishes. I did fajitas the other day. I put everything in, the chicken, all the peppers, the onions, sprinkled on some seasoning, pushed a button, 20 minutes.
What is it called?
Instapot.
Oh, Instapot.
Yes. You can also make yogurt. If you're into the fermented probiotic thing, you can make your own yogurt. And what else can you do in it that's cool? You can do all kinds of rice, grain, steel cut oats, which take like 40 minutes, only take a few minutes. So, hey, there's one of my best tips. Wasn't even expecting it. Okay. So keys to a healthy lifestyle, healthy diet I put first because that's what I know the most about, whatever healthy means. That I think healthy diet can be very loosely defined. There's actually a lot of ways to eat healthy. There's no one perfect answer, but I'm going to give you some of the general things that most people agree upon tonight. I think everybody agrees physical activity is really important to be healthy. So I'll give you some of the basic recommendations. Not necessarily having to go to the gym or run marathons, but just moving, stretching, using your muscles. And the last one, the reason why I have behavior problems and behavior modification in is red is because this is what's usually missing with some of that fad stuff, right? We tend to be able to do things for a short amount of time, but we don't really change our habits and behaviors. We don't commit to that long-term lifestyle change. So that's really important. So if you're interested in weight loss, and some of these are just sort of general healthy eating, there's some reputable organizations that actually evaluate these and make sure that they're reasonable and work for most people. So the one diet that has won the most awards, it's been ranked #1 by the US News multiple times, is actually something called the DASH diet. So I'm going to talk about that later. Have you guys heard of the DASH diet? So it's dietary approaches to stop hypertension. It's been around for years and years and years. They've done tons of research on it. I have another slide about it if you're interested. It's actually not for weight specifically. It's actually for high blood pressure. But it's very healthy and it works very well if you can follow it. A lot of people are surprised that I have meal replacements on this list. So meal replacements, if you think about like a pre-portioned meal, like a lean cuisine or some of the shakes you can buy, You know, I never advocate just having meal replacements, but if you use them for 1 or 2 meals a day, a lot of research shows that they do help people lose weight. They're convenient, they're portion controlled, you don't have to think about it, and if you can avoid going to McDonald's or something like that for lunch, they can help, yeah.
Hopefully with not much sugar in it.
Yes.
Some of them are loaded.
Yeah, there's definitely some that are better than others for sure. I would say none of them are as healthy as like real food, right? I mean, a lot of them have too much salt. You know, they're not perfect, but they can be a useful tool. Volumetrics I'm going to talk about. This is a professor and researcher out of Pennsylvania. She talks a lot about the volume is referring to feeling full and feeling happy, like you've eaten enough but not having too many calories. So I'll give you some of the tips from her book. I'm not going to talk about Weight Watchers tonight, but through research of all the commercial programs, they're probably the best one that's out there. And nutrition counseling, that's going to a registered dietitian, working with that person one-on-one. I have a pretty clear bias towards that, but it has been shown to be effective. And here's some of the worst, and this is, you know, my opinion, this isn't been evaluated scientifically, but having done this now for 20 years, I've seen everybody do all of these diets. And again, I've never really seen anyone do it for the long term, right? And these are just a handful of examples. My very own parents own almost every single one of these books, right? The people who paid for my education. So they're very compelling. You know, they suck people in because they make really fantastic promises. Again, they work in the short term and that gets everybody excited. A lot of these are really old. You can now probably buy them for about 50 cents on an Amazon used bookstore because they just don't work very well long term. This is kind of saying the same thing. This is a slide that my old coworker did. And she's just making the point that we cycle through all of these fad diets, right? So in the 70s, sugar was bad. In the 80s, sugar didn't matter. Cholesterol was bad. I started studying nutrition in the 90s, and that's when fat was bad, but you could have as much sugar and carbohydrates as you wanted. And now we're sort of back to the carbohydrates and sugar being bad. And if you'd ask my students, you know, you can have as much protein as you want as long as you don't have carbohydrates and sugar. So the whole concept that we sort of pick out one thing and make that the bad guy and design a diet around that, like it's been done, right? What's that expression? If you do the same thing over and over again and expect the same result, like we've done all this. It's not really the best direction to go. So let me show you some of the things that tend to work better. This is from that book that I referenced, Volumetrics by Barbara Rolls. This is a little bit more geared towards weight loss, but it could be to anybody who wants to eat healthy. I use a lot of these tips and I try to maintain my weight. I'm not in a weight loss mode. So volumetrics is not a diet. And that's always something that I advocate. Diet's a 4-letter word. Don't say you're on a diet. Don't follow a diet. Just think of it more as lifestyle, what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, not be so rigid about it. And that's really a message of this book. It's just different strategies to try and eat healthier. The big message is to manage your hunger. People don't eat very well when they're hungry, right? Don't go to the grocery store when you're hungry. Don't go out to eat. Don't go to an all-you-can-eat buffet when you're hungry. You make bad choices. So try not to get too hungry, and that will help you manage your calories. Usually for especially behavior change, we want you to think positive. So think about all the wonderful foods you can't eat, and don't be thinking about all the stuff you're not supposed to eat. Just cutting out feeling, most diets are this, you can't eat this, you can't eat that. Usually you're kind of hungry and deprived. So we're really looking towards a healthier pattern of eating. So she's got a telephone to her stomach. Other words you might hear about this are like intuitive eating, mindful eating is another term people use. And it's really talking about feeling satisfied, feeling satiety, and that basically means you eat when you're hungry, but you stop when you're full. Seems very simple, but most people don't do that. Have you guys seen, I'm sure you've all seen, like little kids eat, like 1-year-olds? And when they're done eating, what do? They spit it out, they throw it at you, right? Poor manners. But they're done. They feel that physiological, I don't need to eat anymore, so I'm going to stop. Well, somewhere along the line, we don't do that. Most of us stop eating when our plate's empty, right? We're not really listening and saying, hey, I've actually had enough. And another problem is we often make food choices where we really can overeat before our brain even knows we're hungry. So one of the big messages from volumetrics is focusing on foods that give you immediate fullness, so they fill you up, and you listen and you stop eating, and that lasts a little while, so you're not hungry again in an hour, because that can easily lead to overeating. So in order for it to work, you do need to have a well-tuned appetite gauge. And some people don't because of things beyond their control. But in listening to your body and stopping when you're full is a great habit or strategy. So how do you feel full? Water can be very filling, believe it or not. So foods that are high in water, what do you think? Anybody know besides water itself? Am I making you thirsty? Watermelon's a great example. People tell me, people think that watermelon's bad, that it has so much sugar. It's named watermelon because it's like 90% water. Most of our fruits and vegetables are. Water has no calories, so you can eat a ton of it before you start to feel full. So most of our fruits and vegetables have a lot of water. Fiber, you probably know what fiber is, right? So fruits and vegetables have a lot of fiber, our whole grains. Fiber, pure fiber, actually has no calories either. So we can eat a lot of that and still feel full. Proteins help you feel full. That's why it's one of those green foods. Because it takes your body a long time to digest it. Protein's really hard for the body to break down, so it stays in your stomach a long time, and that makes you feel full too. My red foods here are the ones that we can eat a lot of. A lot of us crave these foods. Some people feel they're addictive in some ways. We process them very quickly, so you can eat a lot of it and an hour later you can be hungry again. So not a great thing, especially if you're trying to eat less or eat fewer calories. And not a lot of health benefits to them either. So thinking about that water message, water doesn't necessarily make you feel full for a long time, but it makes you feel full at that one particular meal, right? So if it'll help you, hopefully stop eating during a meal. So thinking about your fruits, your vegetables, your low-fat milk, and that can be not cow's milk, but soy milk, almond milk is popular. Cooked cereals. Most people find like oatmeal really satisfying. Lean meats, poultry, fish, beans are a great food. And foods that have water in them. This time of year, soups and stews can be your best friend, right? If it's not a real fatty sauce in it, if it's more of a broth, casseroles, pasta, vegetables, fruit-based desserts, very good examples of high water foods. Fiber, again, is the same. You can add a lot of volume with a lot of calories. Fibrous foods, you have to chew more, so it slows you down, takes more time, moves through your digestive tract much slower, so you'll feel fuller longer. Most people notice that a high fiber meal will last longer. And fiber is really good for your intestines. And we know now that what's going on in your digestive system, all the bacteria it makes, why you're supposed to eat yogurt and all of those foods, including fiber, can really make you a healthier person. So here's our fiber. It's actually a very similar list to our water. Fruits, vegetables, our whole grains, so our grains that aren't white and processed, legumes and lentils, any type of bean, lentil soup. I eat lentil soup almost every day. Just a lot of health benefits to it. We're supposed to eat, 25 to 38 grams of fiber a day. That's a pretty high bar. Not many people get to that. But if we're eating our fruits and vegetables and most of our grains are those really high fiber, healthy kind, we can get pretty close to that number. Good? Question? So the fiber recommendation is based on how much you eat, and men tend to eat more because they're bigger and they can eat more. Good question. So this is the bad stuff. I was mean and put the football reference on there, right? Aren't we going to be eating this? I mean, I'm going to a party on Sunday, and I know almost every single one of these foods. It's like the hot dog and the crescent rolls and the nachos and the chicken wings. So Super Bowl Sunday, one of the messages is you can indulge once in a while. That's part of normal, healthy, sustainable eating too. But these high energy density foods, which is junk food, you would all recognize that, they give you a lot of calories in a very small amount, right? One little chicken wing, and you think, oh, it's protein, but if it's got all the skin, and especially if it's been fried, one little chicken wing can have 200 calories. So it can just add up so quickly. You can eat it, but it has to be like a sometime food. Patriots are in the Super Bowl again type of food. It's still only once a year. I'm from the Midwest. I was dying for the Vikings to get in, so. I know, I still cheer for the Patriots. My kids are happy. Yes, yes. But he's a healthy eater, so he'll keep going until he's 45. Yeah. Yes.
Those are not good for you?
Those are good for you, but they are
Small amount.
in small amounts. Right. So they're very energy dense. A handful of nuts, which I eat almost every day, but if you've got a big hand, that could be 500-600 calories. So especially if you're trying to watch your weight, you got to keep some of those small. It's a good question, though. You're absolutely right. Some of these have nutritional value. Yeah.
I eat trail mix.
And I pick one or two things out of the trail mix.
Yeah.
The cashews.
Yes.
But I only have like 3 or 4.
Yes, which is perfectly
Because
appropriate.
we're starting on our healthy. We have all seeds in the morning.
Good.
And we can make them into an oatmeal.
Oh, good.
In the bullet and then put them in.
With a couple of blueberries in with it.
Oh, good.
Blueberries,
Pumpkin.
Good.
ginger.
Good. Very healthy.
3 teaspoons.
So you take the M&Ms out of the trail mix? Is that what I'm hearing?
I eat nuts, cranberries, raisins,
Excellent.
pineapple.
Excellent. Good.
He can afford that kind.
Are some nuts better than others?
Technically, yes. Some of them have a little bit healthier of a fat profile. I think it's such a small difference that I wouldn't nitpick. If you're being very particular, or if you don't like nuts, so you just got to pick one, probably walnuts are the best.
We put walnuts in every one of them.
Yeah. All right, so low energy dense foods, you can get the same amount of calories, but you can eat more of it, so it's going to help you feel full. So think of that water, think of that fiber, and I already gave you some examples of that. Oh, more pictures, good. All right, let me show you real quickly about liquid calories. You don't want to drink your calories unless you're trying to gain weight, but if you're trying to keep your weight the same or lose weight, don't drink your calories, get them from food. Some of this stuff really adds up. Most people have gotten I thought I had one more picture, oh no. Most people know soda is not a good choice. I see people making the most mistakes with some of the coffee drinks and the things that they put into coffee. We have Starbucks right on campus. My office happens to be right there. And I mean, those like Frappuccino, Mocha Latte, those have more calories than most meals. And people, yeah, and people don't even know it. They just think because it's a liquid, it doesn't do that. But you do have to be careful about some of them. All right, let me show, this is right from that volumetrics book. It's kind of a fun visual. So take a look. It's comparing 3 similar things, so grapes, raisins, and grape juice, right? They all come from grapes, but the calorie amount's very different. So a serving of regular grapes has 60 calories. The raisins, the exact same amount, has 200 more. And it's just because they take out the water, right? So there's nothing wrong with raisins. You still get a lot of nutrition, but the calories add up quickly. And the juice is about the same as the raisins, but it's, half a cup of juice isn't much. So especially like with little kids, they tend to overdo it and those calories will add up quick. Here's another example. So this is comparing popcorn to potato chips. Calorie difference, so 2 cups of popcorn, which is pretty big, right? 2 cups is a lot, has 40 to 60 calories. No, yeah, no butter. Good point. Good point. You want to find something a little better than that. 6 potato chips, right? 6 has the same amount of calories. But think about what's going to take longer to eat, give you more nutrition, make you feel fuller. It's the popcorn. It's got more fiber, and it doesn't have water. It has air. But it certainly helps with the volume.
Did you hear about popcorn in bags?
The microwave.
Cancer.
That's, yep.
And you can get a whole thing of popcorn for like 26 cents.
Yeah.
You can cook it yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I do the air pop too. They put some weird stuff in the microwave, popcorns. All right, cheeseburger and French fries, about 960 calories, 50 grams of fat. If you compare that to salmon with grilled vegetables, 1/3 of the calories, much less fat. I think most of us would recognize, right, that the salmon and the salad's a much healthier choice. But again, kind of the point of the book is it's taking up the same amount of space on the plate. It's going to take the same amount of time to eat. It's going to fill up your stomach the same, but you're getting, with this choice, more nutrition and a lot fewer calories. And here's another example of just breakfast. So the big difference would be in the high-calorie, high-fat breakfast, you've got all the breakfast meats. And those high-fat meats add up quickly. If you take those out and focus on the fruit and the egg and the toast, you really save yourself a lot.
If
Yeah.
you look at the French fries and the hamburger, and you look at the vegetables with the salmon on top.
Yep.
If you're using your eyes, the salmon and the vegetables actually look like a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And usually, again, a high fiber food is going to take longer to eat, so it wins on a lot of levels. This is the last one like this. I like it. So 3 medium chocolate chip cookies has the same amount of calories as an apple, a yogurt, a granola bar, an orange, and 2 Hershey Kisses. Right? So your choices make a big difference. How am I doing on time? Oh, I'm talking too slow. I'm going to skip over some of these so we get to the good. Here's another trend I like. I won't show you the video. This is actually a question I have on an exam. True or false? Clean eating was eating cupcakes while mopping the floor. I do have students get that wrong. Clean eating is actually focusing on whole, real food. So it's talking about taking out the processed stuff as much as possible. Some people get really into the organic, no GMOs. That can be part of it, but it's really just eating regular food, not stuff that's had a lot of additives to it. So there's a lot of resources on this. I always challenge my students to try to eat clean for at least 5 days and just see how they feel. I mean, we all need a little processed food sometimes, right? It's fun, it's Super Bowl, things like that. But making an effort to eat more regular whole food is a very good goal to think about. Here's that DASH diet I was telling you about. I'm a big fan of this. If you look at it, it's kind of just what we've always said, right? Eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, 8 to 10 servings a day. Make most of your grains whole grains, but it's still saying carbs are fine. You just want the healthy carbs. Encouraging you to get your protein from leaner cuts of meat. You really want to limit that red meat as much as you can. Seafood's probably the best choice. Get your dairy. What makes it a little bit different is it's telling you to eat beans, nuts, and seeds almost every day. So not many people do that. We were just talking about nuts and seeds, but we know that there's a ton of nutrition in them. And we're starting to think about almost prescribing some of these things, almost like you prescribe a drug. And it's saying you can have sweets, but that should be a treat, not even every single day. So I definitely advocate that. There's tons of free information about the DASH diet on the internet, so highly encourage that one.
What is with the oils of the salad dressings? That struck me as odd.
So it's trying to tell you to have some healthy fats every day. Get your I get most of my healthy fats from avocado and nuts. I use a little olive oil, things like that. But it's not like an extreme low-fat diet. It's still advocating some types of fats.
Do you recommend 5 to 6 meals a day versus like 3 meals a day?
So we used to recommend that. That's kind of fallen off the wayside, and that it doesn't seem to matter. What matters is what works best for an individual. My personal experience is that women tend to do better with the small, frequent meals, and men seem to be able to kind of space it out more, but it's very individual. Here's another, I guess I could call it a trend, but I think I'm interested in it, plant-based diets. So it's basically vegan, which is pretty strict and not something that I would say run out and become a vegan, but thinking about getting most of our food from plants and limiting what we get from animals is really showing to have a lot of health benefits. So it's a beautiful picture too. I like it when they show actual foods. So at the base, what we should focus our diet on, fruits and vegetables. I hope you've gotten that message. I've said it about 1,000 times. Emphasis on whole, healthy grains. getting in those leafy greens, and then getting our protein more from nuts and beans and things like that, and keeping similar those healthy fats as part of it. Now, the thing that makes the plant-based diet tricky for a lot of people is obviously no meat is on here. And this also excludes dairy products. So no butter, no milk. That's too strict for a lot of people, right? But this is definitely a trend where we're kind of doing more with soy milk, almond milk, less from dairy from cows. So you'll probably hear a little bit about it. Does anybody know a vegan? Yeah. It's a lot of my students are vegans, and that wasn't true even 3 years ago. So it's definitely something that people are interested in. Superfoods. Have you guys seen the superfood list? Yeah, there's a lot of them. So I find it very confusing, right? This is one example of, if you Google superfoods, it's chocolate, beets, berries. That's that green tea. I think those are, what are those called? Goji berries. Point is, you'll get different people saying different things are superfoods. So when you see the term superfoods, it's really referring to your vitamins and minerals. It's picking out foods where they have so many different vitamins and minerals. We could come up with a list of 10 superfoods, and you get all your vitamins and minerals just from eating those few foods. So there's obviously more than just 10 foods that can do that, because you see all of these lists. In some ways, I really like it because there are a lot of foods that really do supply a ton of nutrition. And I also really like this concept where you're thinking about getting your nutrients from foods, rather than just saying, hey, I took this multivitamin, I'm all set. I got all my nutrients because I take this one pill. Well, there's a lot of things that you get from food that you can never get from a pill, right? There's a lot of fiber in these foods. A lot of the foods have different combination of nutrients that together they're sort of synergistic. But there's no one perfect list. There's actually probably hundreds of superfoods. So that's good news. There's a lot of healthy food out there. We just got to figure out a way to sort of work it into our diet as much as we can. All right, let me say something about physical activity. Physical activity is probably just as important as eating healthy to be healthy. One of my favorite professors used to say if you could put exercise in a pill, it'd be the most prescribed pill in America, and I believe that. It does a tremendous amount for our health. A lot of people focus on these recommendations, which is talking about sort of getting your heart rate going, walking, biking, swimming. You're supposed to do about 150 minutes a day. Doesn't matter if you break it up into little bouts or do it all together. That works out to about 30 minutes a day. If you ramp it up, if you're more vigorous, you can cut it down, the time amount. But you need your heart going, right? Every day. We also want you to add in some strength training. If you're not into weights, you can do that through yoga. That's how I've chosen to do a lot of my strength training, just kind of holding postures as a way to use your muscles. Or even just making an effort in your daily life if you're physically able to lift things, carry things. People are really worried about all this technology, replacing some of our activities, and worried that's going to impact our health, right? We can push a button now and get groceries delivered to us. So we're kind of fearful of the day when we don't have to do some of these things, and they're really important. The other thing, and this is kind of new, is thinking about how much time we spend just sitting. So another article I have my students read is called, "Is Sitting the New Smoking?" There's a lot of research that shows that, yeah, just sitting for really long periods of time is almost as bad for your health as smoking. So just getting up and moving. I have friends who set a timer so they don't sit at their computer all day. If you have any of those Fitbits or fancy devices, you know, they'll help you so you're getting up and moving.
Do you recommend meal planning?
I do. Especially it kind of as we segue, that's a perfect segue into kind of making behavior changes, planning ahead about what you're going to eat and what when you're going to exercise usually means you're more likely to do it. So absolutely. So the whole purpose of what I was just talking about was to give you some ideas. You know, maybe get you thinking about something you might like to try, something that you could do that might be healthier, related to exercise or nutrition. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the best way to go about making it a permanent part of your life. So it's more than just one presentation that can do that for you, but I'll just kind of get you started. I think I'm going to take questions at the end. So let me plow ahead here because I'm sure people want to leave at a certain time. So this is going to seem a little bit like kindergarten, the ABCs of behavior change. But the whole point of this is to make you sort of aware of your behaviors. So if you focus on a health-related behavior that you want to change, what I'm about to say will make a lot of sense to you. So for me, let me think. So one of my health-related behaviors that I want to change is, you know, I'm kind of worried about my exercise. I kind of have done the same thing. You know, I get up in the morning and I'll go for a walk or I'll jog. But that's about all I've done for 35 years. Well, not that much, 30 years, right? So I need to change that. I need to have more diversity in my activity. That's what the yoga thing was for. So no behavior just happens, right? You don't just wake up one day and say, oh, I'm only going to walk and do no other forms of exercise. There's a trigger or an antecedent to everything. So if you want to change a behavior, you want to start thinking about what your antecedents or your triggers are, because you're going to have to change that too in order to change the behavior. So why do I always just walk instead of do anything else? Well, for me, it's a time thing. Like, you know, it's quickest and easiest for me just to go out for a walk or for a run. It makes me feel the best. I don't get that same happy feeling from doing yoga as I do from more aerobic exercise. And you kind of get into a rut. And so I kind of keep doing those things, right? So if you're kind of thinking about a habit you'd like to change, think about why it's hard for you to change. What are the things sort of leading up to that behavior? So then you think about your behavior, which can be anything. It could be unconscious or conscious. It's just what we do. And again, it's coming from a trigger. So hopefully you have some positive behaviors and you're doing some good things. But if you've got some negative ones that aren't so good for your health, you know, those are the things that you want to focus on. And for every behavior, there's a consequence. So what's the outcome of my cardio-only exercise routine? Well, it's mostly positive. It's good that I'm doing that cardio, but I'm middle-aged. I'm sore. I'm achy, I'm stiff, I'm starting to lose muscle mass because that happens around middle age, and so I need to do more than just cardio all the time. I need strength exercise, absolutely. So the consequence was I was missing out on something. So it's a very simple cycle, right? ABC. So let me give you another example. Let me give you a food example. So the behavior is eat, in this example, Ben and Jerry's. And in my years of practice, if I can kind of expand upon this one behavior, eating at night in front of the television was a very common sort of negative behavior with a negative consequence. I saw it over and over and over and over again. And people were sort of powerless to change this eating in front of the television habit. So we kind of start at the beginning. Well, why do you do that? And you'll get all kinds of reasons. Stress is a common reason we engage in unhealthy behaviors. Seeking comfort, boredom, and then this is always the real eye-opener for people. Why do you eat Ben & Jerry's? Well, it's always there. Right? So sometimes I'm a genius. I solve their problem right there. Don't buy Ben & Jerry's. Right? That's why they pay me the big bucks. It's usually more complicated than that. Right? So here's your behavior. Something led up to it. So figure out what that something is and change it, if at all possible. The reason why this kind of goes in a cycle, though, is our negative behavior usually leads to a negative consequence. In this example, you feel bad. You just ate something you shouldn't. You didn't need it. You do it frequently. It's not a treat. It's a habit at this point. So you kind of lose your confidence. It's easy to give up. And that stresses you out more. And so round and round and round we go. So one of the things that I always work on with my patients or clients, if I was leading a group, is force them to think about the behaviors they'd want to change and all the triggers that lead up to it. And then I'd always make them make SMART goals. Right? So if you were my students, I'd make all of you do this right now. I won't make you do that. And then I'd make you say them out loud if you were comfortable, because that even makes it more likely that you'll do it. Then I'd make you come back again next week and tell me how you did, because all of those things make it more likely that you're going to follow through and actually change some of these habits. Right? So if someone said, my goal is to exercise more, that's not good enough. You'll forget about that in a day. So what specifically do you want to do? Do you want to run more, walk more, take more steps, do more yoga? Be specific. It has to be measurable. Do you want to do it 1 day a week, 3 days a week, every single day, 150 minutes, 70? It doesn't matter, but you have to know if you met your goal or not. That's a very motivating thing to do. Is it attainable and realistic? If it's too difficult, you'll get frustrated. So make sure you can achieve that goal. And make sure there's a time stamp. Short-term goals are the best. Long-term goals are easy to forget. So don't go out more than a week, right? And a lot of people, when they do this, they want to make like 100 of these because they're ambitious and they're, I'm going to tackle the world. I would say 1 or 2, right? Pick 1 or 2, do it well. Have a very specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, timely goal. Get someone, tell it to somebody else so you have some accountability. And from a very sort of simple behavior standpoint, you're far more likely to achieve this than something kind of vague and something that you just say in your head. So if you're serious about making a change, make your goals SMART. Some other things that tend to get in our way is our own self-thoughts. So maybe we were determined to, banish Ben and Jerry's from our life. And as soon as we trip up, as soon as we have a bad day, we tend to be very negative on ourselves. So it's like that internal voice telling you, you can't do this. This is too hard for you. That's very unmotivating. It's very hard to make a change when you're talking down to yourself all of the time. So cognitive restructuring, it's a psychological term, but the more you can sort of challenge yourself and think positive, the more likely it is that you're going to achieve your goals. That's a tricky thing to do without a little help, but it's very important. And the little bit about setbacks, expecting perfection hardly ever works, never works because nobody's perfect. Plan for setbacks. So somebody asked me about meal planning earlier. It's a great thing to do. Recognize that some days you're not going to be able to exercise, and some days you're just going to want to not eat perfectly, and that's normal. It doesn't mean you have to give up on your goal. You probably just have to do some extra planning so to get over it the next day. Good way to make your changes more permanent and not just, you know, a quick New Year's resolution. I'm almost done. I only have 2 more slides. So if you have a setback, try to stay positive, try to learn from it, get back on track as quick as you can, find a good support group, focus on the positives. You know, I'm kind of rattling all of these off, but research has really shown that this is how people make habits stick if they can kind of get into this mentality. Especially for weight loss, we know that if you've lost weight, if you start to regain, that's okay. But if you let yourself regain more than a few pounds, you know, it trickles back on very quickly. So you know, you have to have that accountability to keep yourself on track. The last one is my favorite one. I don't think people do this enough. So if you have a goal and you achieve it, you know, you eat 5 fruits and vegetables a day, you drink 8 cups of water, you get 8 hours of sleep, whatever it is that you wanted to do, you should reward yourself. It's the same way you raise your kids, right? You rewarded their good behavior. It's the same way we train our animals, we reward their good behavior. We do this because it works. So if you do something that you are proud of and that you feel good about, you should reward yourself. Not with Ben and Jared's, but something that continues to make you feel good. Because guess what? It'll make you want to keep doing it. Simple messages. All right, an hour on the nose. So I'll take questions now. That's kind of my last final thoughts. Hopefully you're thinking about something healthy you can do. Make a SMART goal if you're serious about it. It's a good way to make sure that it's going to happen. And ask away. What is a paleo diet? So a paleo diet is kind of silly because it is trying to get you to eat like a caveman. That's what the paleo refers to. That's the silly part. The nice part is it's telling you to not eat processed foods because caveman didn't eat processed foods. It's focused on protein because presumably caveman ate woolly mammoths or beef, organic grass-fed beef. So obviously we can't eat like caveman, but it's less processed food, mostly protein, lots of vegetables, usually not dairy or fruit, but there's different versions of it.
Recommended by you?
It is not recommended by me now. Some of the concepts are, like less processed food, obviously, but you know, to think that you can't eat tomatoes because caveman didn't eat it, but you can eat chicken, right? Because caveman ate chicken. Good question. Yes?
You mentioned incidentally something about fats or sugars being addictive.
Yes.
Did you mean the short term or the long term? I just have found, and I don't know if this is a thing, like we eat one sweet thing and only want the next sweet thing.
Yes.
Is that what you were referring to? Or what?
Yes. So I referred to food addiction. It's a bit controversial. Whenever I talk about food addiction, I'm in my head thinking about it got a lot of headlines about 5 years ago, where they showed that your brain reacts to sugar very similar to how it reacts to like drugs, cocaine.
Like instantaneously.
Yes. But the idea is that if some people really respond to sugar, it kind of gives them a high that they'll continue to seek it out. So are some people more prone to crave high sugar or high salt foods? Some people kind of poo-poo that, but it's looking like some people do crave those things more than others. And there's a lot of interest if food companies know this or suspect this and add lots of sugar and salt to our food to try and keep people coming back. So I think there's probably some validity somewhere in there. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think of the probiotics, especially for
Yes.
now
Yep. So the question is about probiotics, which are very hot right now. So you can take probiotics in a pill. When you take probiotics, you're consuming bacteria, but the healthy, good bacteria. They are highly recommended when you're on antibiotics. So antibiotics kill all bacteria. They're not very selective. So they kill all the good kind too, which isn't good for you. So if you're taking antibiotics, yes, you should either take a probiotic or consume yogurt, kefir, just some type of fermented food to combat the antibiotics.
1 hour.
Probably close, yes. Yep. Yes.
I get confused about that. Is it okay to take an antibiotic at the same time as the probiotic? Because won't that knock out the antibiotic deficiency? Or is it better to take the probiotic after you take it after?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It's supposed to yogurt with the other antibiotics because it kills the functions. Antibiotics kill all the other bugs. So you need to compensate yogurt to
Yeah, you take the antibiotic while you eat the yogurt.
right. Because the antibiotics kill all the bacteria in the stomach.
They do, yes. So the yogurt will boost up the good ones. I think the antibiotics actually, don't they give directions now? Yeah, I haven't taken antibiotics in a long time, so.
You don't take it at the same time.
No.
Well, there's somewhat of a difference, I think. The recommendation about like food forms is probably slightly different than what's in a pill form.
Well, I don't want to take the antibiotic or something, so I don't want the probiotic to not let the antibiotic work in me.
No, it's taking about an hour later.
Take your probiotic an hour after you
Or after.
Because the antibiotics already killed all of them. You go in the back, you got to
So I don't want to kill the antibiotic, that's what I'm taking.
You also, I think you're also, you're talking about bacteria in your large intestine mostly. We're talking about billions of different bacteria. So do you wipe out every single one when you take an antibiotic? No, right? So, whether or not it's an hour or 30 minutes, it's probably not so critical or
I take
important.
it to dental work.
Yeah.
So it's important. So after my dental work is done, I take the large dose of antibiotic. And the next day I start taking probiotics.
Okay.
And drink kefir, and yogurt.
Good.
So that should get,
You're covering your bases.
but I just don't want, I'm afraid to do it the same.
I don't think you need to be too afraid. And probably, did your dentist tell you to take or are you doing it on your own?
I don't discuss it with them.
Okay.
I'm supposed to take it.
Okay. Other questions? Yeah.
I always hear you really should shop the perimeter of the store.
You should really shop the perimeter of the store. Yes, although stores are changing.
True.
I went into Wegmans. What is this? The perimeter of the store is the alcohol, so. Usually, Market Basket, the outside of the store contains the whole foods, and the middle of the store contains the processed. So it's a good strategy. strategy. All right. Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you. Stuff.